Okay, I want you to try a little thought experiment with me. Just picture your neighborhood. Your street, the hallway outside your apartment, whatever it is. Now be honest. Do you know the first and last name of the person living, say, 3 doors down?
Mhm. Probably not.
And if your car broke down at 2 in the morning, or if you, I don't know, suddenly lost your job and shouldn't buy groceries, could you knock on their door for help?
For the vast majority of people living in, modern cities, New York, London, Tokyo, the answer is almost certainly no.
Hmm.
A hard no.
Exactly.
We live physically close,
Mm.
but there's this massive social distance between us.
Right. We have neighbors, but we don't really have a neighborhood. We've got zip codes. We've got people we do that awkward little nod to when we're taking out the recycling.
Yeah.
But imagine if that wasn't the case. I mean, really imagine a place where community isn't just this like fuzzy, nice idea, but an actual functioning machine. A machine that's your insurance company, your wedding planner, your security guard, and maybe even your therapist.
That sounds pretty intense and maybe a little claustrophobic for some people who really value their privacy.
It does. It totally does. It sounds like either a utopia or a nightmare, depending on your personality. But today, we're not talking about a sci-fi novel. We're doing a deep dive into a place where this reality exists right now. We're looking at the Harari people of Harar, Ethiopia.
And specifically, we are unpacking a really fascinating sociological study. It's by Mohammed Abubakar, and it's called Social Structures and Cultural Identity of the Harari People.
And our mission for this deep dive is pretty straightforward, even if the answer is complex. We want to figure out how they pull this off. How do you build a safety net that actually works, without a massive government bureaucracy behind it? And maybe, just maybe, can this ancient city teach us anything about how to not hate our neighbors in this, increasingly polarized world we're in?
It's a really compelling question. Because what Abubakar's study reveals is that this isn't just about culture in that sort of food and festival sense.
Right.
It's about social engineering. It's about how specific structures, what we sociologists call informal institutions, can do the heavy lifting that we usually expect the state or, paid services to handle.
So let's set the scene. Harar. This isn't just some random town that popped up a few years ago.
Oh, far from it. Harar is one of the oldest urban centers in the Horn of Africa. It's a walled city, the Jugol, and it's been a hub for trade and Islamic learning for centuries. But what makes Abubakar's research so relevant today isn't just the history. He's not treating it like a museum piece.
Yeah, that's a great point. Usually when we talk about ancient cities, it's like we're talking about ruins. Look at the pretty walls. Imagine who lived here. But this study treats Harar as a living laboratory.
Exactly. The study uses what he calls a qualitative sociological approach.
Okay, let's pause on the jargon there for a second. Qualitative sociological approach. Why does that matter to someone just listening to this, trying to understand how a community works?
It matters because he didn't just look at, say, census data or economic charts. You can't understand a community by counting heads. He looked at relationships. He reviewed ethnographic studies, historical records, all this literature to map out how people interact, the unwritten rules. Because when you want to understand something like trust or obligation, you can't measure it with a ruler. You have to look for the patterns.
Okay, so he's looking for the invisible wires that hold everyone together. And what he found, he seems to revolve around this core philosophy that feels, well, almost alien to a modern Western mindset.
He describes Harari society as highly community-oriented. Now, I know that sounds like a huge cliche.
It does. I mean, every suburban housing development claims to be community-oriented because they've got a shared pool and a Facebook group for complaining about parking.
Right, but that's all surface level.
Yeah.
Here, community-oriented isn't a marketing slogan, it's a survival strategy. The study breaks it down into 3 pillars: cooperation, mutual support, and shared responsibility.
It's that last one, shared responsibility. That's the one that trips me up. Because in my life, and I think for a lot of us, the default is individualism. If I succeed, that's on me. If I mess up, that's my problem. The idea that my neighbor is somehow responsible for me and I for them, that feels like a heavy weight.
It is a burden, and the study acknowledges that. This whole system is shaped by religion, tradition, and these deep neighborhood ties. It's like a tripod of obligation. You don't just opt in when it's convenient. You're sort of born into this web of duties.
So let's get practical. How does this web of duties actually work day to day? Because, when we try this stuff casually, a potluck, a neighborhood watch, it usually falls apart. People get busy or annoyed or whatever. How has Harar kept this thing running for centuries?
This is really the most critical takeaway from the source. They don't rely on casual goodwill. They don't just hope people feel like helping. They've institutionalized it. And the study points to one specific mechanism. It's called the afucha.
The afucha. Yes. I highlighted this all over my notes. This feels like the secret sauce. If you take one thing from this deep dive, it's this concept.
It is the engine of their society. The afucha is a traditional neighborhood association, but you have to completely strip away your modern idea of that phrase. This is not an HOA that fines you for painting your mailbox the wrong color.
Thank God. Because my relationship with my HOA is definitely not one of mutual support. It's more like mutual passive aggression.
Right. The afucha is basically a parallel government for social life. Every head of a household in a specific neighborhood belongs to one. It's formal. There are rules, dues, and this is the key guaranteed benefits. It's structural.
Okay, let's talk about those benefits. The study lists a few functions, and they seem to cover the entire human experience from birth to death.
Let's start with the hardest part of life, a funeral. In most of our societies, a funeral is a logistical and financial nightmare, right when you are least able to handle it. You're grieving, you're in shock, and now you have to become an event planner.
And a banker, and a caterer.
Yeah, exactly. In the Harari system, the afucha takes over. The study says they organize funerals, but that's an understatement. The members physically show up, they handle the burial, they cook for everyone, they provide emotional support, and they often cover the costs from a collective fund.
That is just incredible. I mean, can you imagine the psychological relief? You don't have to worry about the food or the logistics. You just have to grieve. The community literally catches you when you fall.
And it's the same thing for weddings. The afucha mobilizes. It turns what can be a private financial burden into a collective celebration. It reinforces this idea that your joy is the community's joy and your loss is the community's loss.
Okay, but here's the flip side. This is where my skeptical brain kicks in. If they're paying for my wedding and burying my relatives, do they kind of own me? What happens if I have a disagreement with my neighbor? If I'm this tangled up with people financially and socially, isn't conflict way more dangerous?
That's where the third function comes in. And sociologically, this is the most fascinating part of the afucha. It serves as a mechanism for conflict resolution.
So they're the judge and jury, too.
In a way, yes. They're what we call an informal institution for justice. Let's say you and your neighbor have a dispute over a property line, a debt, whatever. In the US or Europe, you might call the police or you might sue them. Both are formal institutions. They're expensive, they take forever, and they almost always destroy the relationship for good.
Yeah, you're not having a barbecue with the guy you just took to court.
Exactly. In Harar, the afucha elders step in. They mediate. But it's not just a friendly suggestion. It has teeth. See, if some random person tells you to apologize, you can just ignore them. But if the afucha elders tell you to apologize and you refuse, you risk being ostracized from the very support system that buries your dead and marries your kids.
The stakes are huge. It's social leverage. You can't just walk away from the table because you need that network.
Precisely. The study points out that this is how they maintain social order without a cop on every corner. It resolves conflicts at the lowest possible level, and it's restorative, not just punitive. The goal isn't just to punish someone, it's to repair the tear in the social fabric so life can go on.
It's like peer pressure, but weaponized for peace.
It's a cynical way to put it, but yeah, it's accurate.
Yeah.
The study calls it social solidarity and trust. When you know there's a system to handle disputes fairly, you trust your neighbors more. You aren't so paranoid that they're going to take advantage of you because you know the afucha is there to check them.
It's so interesting. We often think of freedom as being left alone, the ability to do whatever we want. But this suggests that real freedom from anxiety, from isolation, actually comes from binding yourself to other people.
That is the paradox of community.
Wow.
To be supported, you have to be accountable. You trade a little bit of your individual autonomy for a massive amount of collective security.
Okay, so that's the internal machinery. The afucha keeps the Harari community tight-knit. But Harar isn't an island. It's a city surrounded by other ethnic groups, like the Oromo people.
Corrupt. And historically, that kind of diversity in a small, resource-constrained space can be a recipe for disaster. We see it all over the world. Strong internal bonds, like the ones the Harari have, can sometimes curdle into xenophobia. It becomes us versus them.
Right, the fortress mentality. So how does Harar avoid that? The study calls them a model for peaceful, multi-ethnic coexistence. How do they do it?
It really comes down to interaction, not just a philosophy of tolerance. The study emphasizes that they share economic spaces.
Markets.
Markets. But think about what a market really is. It's a place of mutual dependency. The Hararis have historically been urban traders, craftsmen. The Oromo might be farmers bringing in produce. They need each other to survive. It's hard to hate the person who provides your food, and it's hard to hate the person who buys your
So
goods.
it's not just holding hands and singing songs. It's, I need your onions and you need my money.
Exactly. Commerce is a powerful binding agent. It creates rational incentives for getting along. But the study also mentions they share neighborhoods and have specific social norms designed to reduce conflict.
Like what? What kind of norms?
Well, it implies a kind of cultural software that's programmed to de-escalate.
Okay.
Because they live in such close quarters, remember it's a walled city, dense, narrow alleys, aggression is just too costly. If you start a fight in a crowded market, you disrupt everyone's livelihood. So the culture evolves to prioritize politeness, negotiation, letting things slide.
That makes perfect sense. Density forces diplomacy. If you live on a 10-acre ranch, you can scream at your neighbor. If you share a wall, you have to learn to whisper.
And that forced interaction creates familiarity. It breaks down stereotypes. It's much harder to demonize the other when you're buying vegetables from him every Tuesday and asking about his kids. The abstract enemy becomes a person.
But this raises a really tricky question about identity, which the study touches on. If you're constantly mixing and living with other groups, how do you remember who you are?
The eternal struggle, right?
Yeah.
Assimilation versus integration.
Yeah, we see it everywhere with globalization. Everyone starts wearing the same jeans, listening to the same music. How do the Harari stay Harari?
Abu Baker's study identifies these specific markers of identity that act almost like a cultural immune system. They let the Harari interact without dissolving.
Okay, what are the markers?
The first, and maybe most powerful, is language. The Harari language is distinct. It creates a linguistic boundary. When you step into your home or your Afucha meeting, you switch codes. It's a constant reminder of belonging.
Language as a fortress. I like that. It creates a private space where we can exist.
Then there's religion. The study highlights Islam not just as a faith, but as a rhythm of life. The call to prayer, the holidays, the dietary rules, they create a shared calendar and value system that binds the community together.
And I'm guessing the visual stuff matters too, like dress and food.
Oh, hugely. The study lists cultural artifacts,
Huh.
their dress, their food, their customs, even the specific architecture of a traditional Harari house. These aren't just decorations, they are signals.
Signals to who?
To themselves and to others. When a Harari woman wears her traditional dress, she's signaling her identity. It's a way of saying, I am part of this specific story. And interestingly, having that strong identity seems to make it easier to coexist.
Wait, explain that. I would have thought a stronger identity would make you more stubborn, less open.
Not necessarily. Insecurity often leads to hostility. If you're afraid your culture is vanishing, you get defensive, you build walls, you attack. But if you are secure, if you have your language, your Afucha, your traditions, and you know they aren't going anywhere, you can step out into the world with confidence. You aren't threatened by your neighbor being different because you know exactly who you are.
That is a really profound point. A secure identity allows for an open hand, while an insecure identity makes a fist.
Precisely. And that's why Harar is such a valuable case study. It suggests that we don't need to erase our differences to get along. We don't all need to become one homogeneous blob. We just need the right structures, like the market and the Afucha, to manage those differences constructively.
It's a model of pluralism that actually seems to work, not by blending everyone into a gray soup, but by letting different ingredients share the same bowl without spoiling each other.
A very culinary metaphor, but yeah, it works.
So let's zoom out. We've been deep in Ethiopia, talking about walled cities and ancient traditions, but the person listening is probably, driving to work in Chicago or sitting on a train in London. Why should they care about the Afucha?
I think it really challenges our total reliance on formal institutions. In the West, we've outsourced our community. We expect the police to solve our conflicts, the government to provide safety nets, and professionals to manage our life events.
And we pay a premium for that, not just in taxes, but in loneliness. We've paid for our independence with isolation.
Correct. The Harari model shows us the power of these informal institutions. It proves that ordinary people, when organized correctly, can manage incredibly complex social problems. It suggests that maybe we should look at our own neighborhoods not just as a collection of houses, but as potential support systems waiting to be built.
It's about agency, isn't it? We often feel so helpless in big societies. Oh, the city needs to fix this, or the police should handle that. But the Afucha proves you can build stability from the bottom up. You don't have to wait for the mayor to save you.
But it requires effort. That is the catch. You
Huh?
have to show up, you have to pay your dues financially and emotionally, you have to sit through uncomfortable meetings.
Right. You can't just be a consumer of community. You have to be a producer of it. You have to do the work.
That's the perfect way to put it.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave everyone listening with a final thought experiment. It's a bit of a challenge to the way we all live.
Go for it.
We've kind of glamorized the Yafrucha today, the support, the safety net. But I want you to imagine your own street. Imagine if tomorrow a new rule was put in place. You are now responsible for your neighbor's funeral. You are required to let your neighbors mediate your disputes instead of calling a lawyer. And in exchange, they will do the exact same for you.
That is the ultimate question, isn't it?
Would you feel trapped by those obligations? Or would you feel for the first time in a long time like you could finally exhale because you're not holding up the entire world all by yourself?
Would you trade your anonymity for security? It's not an easy answer for the modern individual.
It's not, but it's worth thinking about the next time you see that neighbor and just give them that awkward little nod. Maybe there's a missed opportunity there. Maybe we don't need a wall, we just need a table.
Look for the social patterns in your own life.
Yeah.
You might be surprised what you can build.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll catch you on the next one.